Hello, everyone, and welcome to our show. So, today I'm chatting to Emyrald Sinclaire, who's one of my beautiful friends over in the States, although you're currently in Tulum in Mexico,
Yeah.
which is why you've got that summer beautiful glow. You were just saying you were charging up by the pool
hmm
before coming in today. So, just to let my audience, who I can see who is in the comments section, thank you everyone for joining us. Just to let everyone know a little bit about Emerald, I actually came across you via your podcast. So I highly recommend for everyone to jump on. Oops, our internet connection just dropped for a second, just checking everything's okay this end. Um, so yeah, I highly recommend for everyone to go over to iTunes and check out Emerald's podcast because that is where I heard your amazing voice and just really not only the words that you said, but there was an energetic resonance that really resonated for me. So I also found you on Insight Timer with your meditations and I would quite often put them on to go off to sleep into manifestation land, and they really do work too. So I just wanted to let people know you work as a coach, but I mainly came across you as a love coach and manifesting that soulmate energy. Did you want to maybe give the people just a little bit of a rundown on how you came into this world of working with people and like what kind of guided you on this path?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so when it comes to manifestation and manifesting love, I actually was raised by a hypnotherapist, and I think you know this. And so this is when I
Yeah.
really started to learn about the subconscious mind and the power that our thoughts create our reality. And so as a young child, by young child, I mean, I'm in my teenage years, but I was like, wow, this is amazing. I can create my own reality. Yay! But then fast forward into college and I'm having like horrible relationships. I'm doing all of the wrong things. And so I have this idea that my thoughts create my reality. And so I'm like trying to manifest love and yet it's not working. And so that right there really was the impetus of how I started to dig deeper and deeper and deeper into these premises of conscious creation, manifestation, how our thoughts create a reality. I'm a young woman wanting love, but just making all the mistakes over and over again. And so when I feel like I kind of figured it out, even though we're all, of course, always learning and growing, and it's constant growth and evolution over time. It's not like we ever reach this pinnacle and then we're done. But what I have truly learned about self love and law of attraction of like attracts like, and that will be reflected back to you in partnership, not just how you're acting, but what you're thinking and feeling and believing. I realized I had to teach this to other women. And so at the time, I was 28 and I had called an amazing man. We're no longer together today, but I had called him in. And so I was like, okay, what did I have to do in order to shift, in order to attract in this person? And so that's where the coaching began with love coaching, but it's evolved from there because it truly is the principles of manifestation and conscious creation, which is if you believe in yourself and you believe it exists in the universe and you take action towards it, like that's being in alignment. I know we had talked about, we're going to talk about alignment too.
Yeah.
And so if you believe that you can have it, you believe that it exists, and your thoughts and your words, your belief systems, your actions are in alignment with that, it will manifest. But instead, the challenge is people want it, but they notice the lack, or they want it, but they don't believe they can have it, or they want it, but they don't believe he exists in the world. And so that's being out of alignment. So ultimately, my journey and everything I've learned to get myself in alignment with my desires and believe that I can have it and believe that the universe will provide it for me is now what I turn around and teach others to do.
It's so exciting. And I love it when I see on your Instagram stories. I also highly recommend everyone to jump on Instagram and follow you and on Facebook, but definitely, be following you on your podcast too, because you want to get that juicy information. You want to keep bringing it into your consciousness. And I think that's
Mhm.
also with me, like I still do your meditation all the time on Insight Timer.
Thank
Uh,
you.
yeah, it's one of my favorites. I think it's Create the Life of Your Dreams, or it's the one where
Create
you
your
really,
dream life. Oh, yeah.
that's the one. Even did it
hmm
going to sleep last night. It's
At
just
a girl.
we've got to keep bringing it into our
Yep.
field, if
Yep.
it's what we want to attract and come into alignment with. And that's why I also love hearing about your client stories, because it's like each time I see a beautiful success story from one of your clients. It's like, yes, like
Yeah.
it almost feels like a team energy behind it,
Yes.
like cheering everyone on. And I know, you specifically work with a lot of women, but I also know men that love your work too. And yeah, so I'm just gonna grab some water.
Yeah, yeah, no, please go for it. No, and I'm glad you said that, and that's a really good reminder. And I'll shift a little bit or pivot a little bit. When we see others have what we want, the knee-jerk reaction is we tend to go to this place of jealousy, right? Of like, oh, she's got it. How come she got it? She's not even that pretty. She's not even that attractive. She's not even that smart. Like the ego tries to pull them down, but then that creates more separation. That creates even more lack, scarcity mindset. But when you can look at someone and celebrate their success, celebrate their relationship, celebrate their finances, whatever it is, then ultimately you're in an abundance mindset. And you're saying, if she can do it, I can do it. If she can have it, I can have it. Or if he can do it, I can do it. And so we have to shift the pendulum away from the lack mentality, which is there's a limited pieces of pie in the pie, right? Limited slices of pie. And if she has a slice, that means there's one less available. And instead, it's our desires create the pie. Our desires make the pie bigger. If anything, it's she's got a piece of pie that looks delicious. I'll have a piece too. I don't need her piece. I'm going to create my own piece. And so when we think about manifestation, it's so important that we celebrate what other people have, not only from the perspective of, yeah, celebrating is awesome, but also it pulls it closer to you, right? Because once again, you're in this abundance mindset instead of this lack mindset.
It's so important too to be in that. And I say the same. Like I've had, I guess, girlfriends in the past where it's, there'll be lack, scarcity, jealousy, or they'll be, scared of needing to protect their man, or like, just
Mhm.
more in that fear and scarcity mindset. And then I noticed as I got older, it was more having a tribe. And I really was like a conscious creation of pulling those other beautiful women in where we celebrate each other and we celebrate wins. So I know like when they've met the man of their dreams or they're, experiencing like a lot of abundance, I'm like, yes, because like the more that we celebrate it, the more that we also start to kind of bathe in that energy and attract it. And I love the pie analogy. And my visual brain got so excited by that reference. I'm like
Yeah.
making pie, and there's
Unlimited
like
pie.
it's like raw vegan pie with like coconut whipped cream on top and a
Mm.
cherry, and there's like cacao nibs. And, we, not everyone wants the same pie. Some people
Exactly.
might want, like a real sugar fix kind of pie. So that's the thing too, is to remember that we all energetically throw out something that's so specific to the universe.
Right.
And that's where there's not that scarcity. I always say to my clients too, if there's a fixation around, say, like one particular man, and it's like I need to have him or I want my ex back,
Mhm.
we also need to look at what it was that didn't work with the ex, but to remember that there is about 7 billion people on the planet. So I think
Yeah.
that's perspective is everything. Um, what do you feel is kind of like common blocks when it comes to manifesting that soulmate? What are things that you see sort of time and time again? Like if we could pick maybe like 3 things, or if you need to expand past
Yeah.
that.
Well,
Yeah.
the first one you already said, the focus on the who. Like, because
Mhm.
usually it's the ex. The ex was the one. I can't believe I lost him. I did something wrong. Blah, blah, blah. So the who is definitely a big block in manifestation because that's not your responsibility. The second one that I see, which you already even just said time and time again, is time. We create this false sense of
Mhm.
scarcity with time, which is time is running out. Time is running out to get married. Time is running out to have children. Time is running out to make money, to fall in love, whatever it is, the scarcity. But when you really think about it, the only time we have is now. Like time is an
Yeah.
illusion that we have created. And so the who is definitely one, the when, time, right, is definitely
Mhm.
one. But then I would say another one is just the ego trying to control it all. Like you're not
Yeah.
allowing yourself to be in the flow and the magic of the universe. And I can tell you so many stories of my clients. I think of one in particular, she just got engaged. She left a marriage that was not in alignment, that was not right for her because she was forcing it because she thought the time was running out. And so she married him, tried to have kids. It didn't work. And we worked together towards the end of her marriage. And so she had the courage to get really clear on what she wanted. She had the courage to leave a relationship that's no longer in alignment. And within a month, she had met her partner, her fiance. Like, she didn't know, of course, at the time in a month that that was him, but she had done the work to shift and let go of attachment to who it had to be and when it had to happen. And as a result, it happened so quickly. But what blocks people is they think, I know what's best for me. I know who it is. And if it hasn't happened by 35 years old, then it's never going to happen, as opposed to allowing themselves to just be in the flow of the universe. And so get clear on what you want and why you want to have it. And to the best of your ability, just have as much fun as you can in the meantime. And that's when things will manifest quickly. But instead, our brains and our egos try to control it all. And so that's why in the beginning I talked about, you need to believe in yourself and believe in the universe. And the believing in the universe is how you need to have that unattachment, that detachment, that trust, that letting go of, it's going to happen when it happens. And when you can be in that place, it actually happens a lot quicker than when you're trying to force it and you're trying to control it.
And it makes sense. It's just like, if we're trying to kind of strangle our dreams into coming, or sometimes I use the analogy of opening the oven door to kind of check that cake is being baked.
Yeah.
We kind of need to let the universe keep baking our dreams and keep baking our desires into being. For anyone that is really thinking about that they're ready to manifest their soulmate, or to really have that extra help to get rid of the subconscious beliefs and to get rid of like the old things that are holding you back, maybe in the darker recesses or corners of the mind, or perhaps you've been working at this for years and it just hasn't quite happened, or you haven't quite met that person, or you haven't achieved the goals that you desire to achieve. I really recommend go check out Emyrald's website. I've just put the link here, whether it's to go check out some of the amazing resources that you have through your podcast, or through, different offerings that you have, or even booking
come to Tulum.
Yeah, exactly. I know I would if I could get on a plane right now.
If I could get out of Australia.
Maybe swim. Well, I do have the mermaid hair today, so maybe I could swim all the way to Tulum. But yeah, I highly recommend, if you want to create and shift, you have to take that action. And especially when it's inspired action. So if something that we're saying is really speaking to you right now, if it's really resonating, don't just sit there and think about it. Literally, do that step, do that change to call it and to bring it closer towards you. Because when we talk so of the essence, so it's really important that we take that inspired action when we're feeling that call. Did you maybe want to speak a little bit on how we can supersede or surpass or eliminate some of those subconscious or negative core beliefs that are holding us back? Is there any tools or techniques that you feel really kind of quantum jump us to the other side of fear and really tap us into like what it is that we desire and starting to resonate with that?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of tools, absolutely. And depending on the person, there's a way, I mean, there's lots of tools I could suggest, but the first one that just popped into my mind was tapping, emotional freedom technique. Like when I am in my own personal fear-based moments or freakouts, like it's not working, that's when I will tap. Like we have these tools for a reason. And so I will tap. So I will absolutely recommend tapping as a tool. And then other things I will do, like to just like in the moment, like let's say someone's freaking out about, I'm running out of time, or what if I invest in myself and it doesn't work out, right? If they're thinking about investing with a coach, then I'll play the what if game. Because more often than not, our fears aren't actually true, because being unsafe is completely different than being uncomfortable. Unsafe is I don't have food, I don't have a roof over my head, a man is chasing me with a gun. So when we're in a fear-based state, we also need to remember that more often than not, you might be afraid, but it doesn't mean that you're not safe. It just means you're afraid of being uncomfortable. Meaning, what if this doesn't work out? What if I spend the money and I don't get the results? What if I open my heart to the guy and he breaks my heart again? What if I move to Mexico on a whim because Spirit told me so and it doesn't work out, right? And so when you play the what if game down to the end of what you're actually afraid of, what I have found pretty much 10 times out of 10 when I play this game with my clients is you realize you're going to be just fine. And so you can play the what if game, but then you also need to have the mental strength when you're in a moment to remember that it takes just as much energy to focus on what if it doesn't work, like what if I fail, as it does to say, what if I succeed? What if it does work? And so I am constantly in a process of reframing. So when I'm caught up in a
Mm.
fear based thought, I'm like, well, this is just showing me the contrast of what I want. Meaning, what if I don't get a client? Well, the opposite is, what if I have a really abundant month? What if
Mhm.
this guy breaks my heart? Well, what if he ends up being the one? Right. And so we can constantly be coaching ourselves, which is we get what we focus upon. So, do you want to focus on things working out for you, or do you want to focus on things not working out for you? So, that's why tapping comes in. Things like the
Mhm.
what if game, doing those visualizations and guided meditations. I mean, all of these things are incredibly helpful that one can use. Some people use plant medicine. I know you and I talked about that on my
Yeah.
podcast. I have plenty of experience with plant medicine. There's different healing and therapeutic modalities. The list goes on and on. But typically, in the moment when I'm in a spiral, I know what works for me, which is usually tapping or meditation or journaling or yoga, moving my body, going
Mm.
for a walk. So I think it's actually more about the person and the individual trying all of these practices and seeing what works for them. So like when I guide my clients through my programs, they get so much content in one word. I mean, it could
Mm.
almost be overwhelming, but it's not because they're meant to do everything every single day. It's that they're meant to try because it's different strokes for different folks, right? Like some people really
Yeah.
resonate with Reiki, some people really resonate with tapping, some people
Mm.
meditation. I mean, you have to find what works particularly for your energetic signature at a certain place and time, because what works for you today might not work for you tomorrow, and what didn't work for you last year doesn't mean it's not going to work for you this year. And that's what gets people caught up. They play in the realm of predictability instead of the realm of possibility. And so,
Oh,
well,
I
I
love
already
that.
tried that and it didn't work. I'm like, well, you're a completely new person today. It's like the age old adage, you don't step in the
Mm.
same stream twice, because the stream is always flowing. So the stream is different, but you're always changing, which means you're different. So can we have that growth mindset of, you're not the same person, and what you did yesterday isn't going to be or have the same results as what you do today. And it's also pebbles on the scale. It's the compound effect. It's like
Mm.
you keep doing it and these things add up. And I promise you, things will shift and change in your life if you just keep moving confidently in the direction of your dreams.
I love that. And I just love it how you lay things out visually. It just, there's so many aha moments. I'm going to
Mhm.
go back and watch this episode again because I'm just like, there's little bits and I'm like, oh, hold on to the energy of that. Like, remember, remember that. And what you were saying, for me, like visually, I see it as the Princess of Wands in tarot is she's
Ooh.
pulled down by the fear, which is this tiger that has his tail around her neck. It's sort of like she's trying to make change. She's trying to bring this illumination on her path and into her life. But fear is kind of holding her back. And we need to transcend that and step into Queen of Wands energy, which I always say, excuse my French, but it's like making fear the bitch. So
Yeah.
Queen has the big cat at her knee. She's sitting on her throne with her her wand in hand, which is the pineal gland. On the
Mhm.
end of the one is this pine cone that's come into opening. She has the sun glowing in the background with the eagle on top of her head. She has that foresight, that vision to know that all is okay. And when fear comes up, she reminds fear who's in control. So
Mhm.
I love it that we can use that fear as kind of like a counterbalance or a countermeasure. Anytime it comes up, what is it teaching us? Let fear be that teacher. But so important how you're talking about the tools. The one thing for me that I notice really helps to kind of snap me out of it, because I think it's so great that you talk about that we each still have these fears come up, but it's what we do with it. I know for me, putting music on, I've got a playlist on Spotify that totally switches up or changes the energy. And
Mhm.
myself and my partner, we would talk about, if we feel an energy starting to happen in the morning, it's like, right, we can change this. What can
Yes.
we do right now to change this
Yes.
energy? We do not have to have a crappy day. Is there a
Right.
couple of things outside of like the tools that we talked about, like yoga and meditation and tapping and that really kind of help you to be that guardian on the threshold of the conscious mind? Is there anything that helps you to grab those thoughts when you're sort of spiraling into
Mm.
or to become conscious in the moment of where we could choose to be conscious or unconscious?
Sure. I mean, this is a big question because I feel like it's been It's the pebbles on the scale. It's the small
Mm.
daily things you do every day. It's the getting out ahead of it, right? And so it is really hard. And the funny thing is, I was actually just listening to an Abraham Hicks earlier today,
Ah, yep.
before this interview, and she was talking about you're driving 100 miles an hour and you drive over a cliff, and you're like, oh, maybe I should do something different. And Abraham, of course, is like, don't worry about it, it'll be over soon. So it's that same idea of sometimes when
Yeah.
you're in the spiral, like, just let yourself spiral down. Don't worry, it'll be over soon.
Yeah.
Now, I realize like that's not always pertinent, but the hardest time to change a thought is when you're in the spiral.
Mhm.
Now, but if you're constantly every single day doing practices to raise your vibration, then ultimately you're mitigating the wobble, you're mitigating the spiral because you're going up and up and up.
Mm.
So when you're up here, it's a lot easier to stay up here than when you're like spinning down the drain. And sometimes you just have to let yourself spin down the drain and then try again tomorrow or take a nap.
Mhm.
And so for me, I just view it as like these last, I don't even know how many years of work I've done to be where I am. It's like I don't have many moments that are low, but at the same time, as you know, like I've sent you Instagram messages of like, this sucks. I don't like this. Like, and sometimes we just need to get it out and we need to
Yeah.
call on a good friend that isn't going to let us stay there. And so that's the thing. I have really loving, supportive friends that help hold me accountable so that if I'm in a moment, they're not going to let me stay there,
Yeah.
but they'll offer the light, they'll offer the guidance back as a reflective point. Meaning, like, is this really how you want to feel? How could you see things differently? What
Mm.
does your higher self think about this? Like, these are questions that I ask myself. So, even last week, I had another little flare up of something happened with my ex, and I was like, okay, like, if like what would Christ consciousness think about this?
Mm.
What would love think about this? How could you see this differently? Because your mind, your ego is seeing things a certain way, which may or may not be true, but ultimately, does it really feel good to focus
Mm.
on it this way and make up this story? And that's what I always come back to. And if it doesn't feel good, then I'm just unavailable for it. Like whether it's true or not, you can choose to see things through a certain perspective. And so the question I will ask myself is typically, how can I see this differently? Or what does my higher self think about this? And usually that shifts me.
I love that. That's such a great, it's like if we're cutting the threads of the fear that are trying to infiltrate and get into our mind, that's one of those tools or techniques that really just
Mm,
helps to kind of stop it in its tracks because it's so easy to get into that spiral. And I'm the same too. Like if there's something that I'm kind of ruminating on or thinking about, sometimes it's hard to like step outside of those thoughts or to put it aside for a minute and put it on hold. So it really is good to reach out to a friend or reach out to someone that you know that can perhaps give a different perspective or give a different insight. And that's also why I think it's really important that we have beautiful souls like yourself doing, love coaching and life coaching, because sometimes we need that upgrade outside of our friends, like friendship group, to
right.
be able to get a holistic view on what's happening, look into past, look into patterns, because I think patterns are so important to really look at, like, okay, what is it that I've been attracting in the past?
Right.
What is the lesson in this? Can you maybe speak a little bit on patterns and how, like, sometimes we'll keep repeating a pattern until we've truly learned that lesson. I know that's the same
Yeah.
with my clients too.
It is absolutely. And that's the thing. I view it patterns as lessons. And so until you learn the lesson, the pattern will keep coming up over and
Mhm.
over and over again. Now, mind you, sometimes we learn the lesson at a different level. And I think it's Tony Robbins who says, new level, new devil, meaning you might
He does.
learn it again as you're spiraling upward. And so if you can look at patterns in your life, think about it. The only thing that is consistent in your life is you. Meaning, if there are patterns in your relationships, you're the only person to blame, and not even to blame in a bad way, but you're the one responsible for that. And so look at the patterns. What do they have in common? Could you look at it from the point of view? And these are other questions I would say is you could ask yourself, what was the lesson here? What did I learn? Or how did this serve me? Or even what could I be grateful for? So that you can look at it through a different perspective and you're no longer the victim of he or she is a jerk. I can't believe they did it to me. Why does this always happen to me? Blah, 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 blah. That's you in victim mentality. But if you step back and let's say you just put on your glasses like an inspector and you're like, okay, let's say I was looking at someone else's life and trying to find the pattern and trying to discern, like, why does this keep happening? What is the lesson I'm not learning? What are the red flags that I am not seeing? And so to be more of like an outsider, and I think that's why, of course, us as coaches and mentors and guides can be so beneficial because we're not emotionally involved. We're just looking at it from the outside of like, excuse me, don't you see your pattern? You keep dating narcissistic men. And tell me about your father. Oh, he was a narcissist? I wonder where that pattern came from. So, the first step in breaking a pattern is, of course, recognizing the pattern. And usually, what happens with clients is they'll start to see it. Like it'll still happen, but it'll happen and they'll see it faster. And then they'll say no to that. And so, there is something very energetically powerful about saying no to what you don't want instead of allowing that pattern to continue to perpetuate or to just be blind. Like, why does this keep happening to me? Like, because you're energetically calling that in. We live in a world that's based on law of attraction, not law of repulsion. So anything in your life is a reflection of the internal, which should be a good thing because it means if you want anything to change in your life, all you need to do is change the internal.
That's so true. And I notice sometimes that, even just we can be running on autopilot. And that's where it's really important to gain the clarity in meditation and, in our practices, whether it's yoga or different things or walks in nature to create that stillness so that we're not operating on the blindfold mode or over here in Australia, we call it, the headless chook. We're not running around like a it's such a random saying, but
Like
it's
a
like,
chicken with its heads cut off.
yeah,
That's
we're
what we
not sort of
say.
running
Yeah.
around trying to
Yeah.
create life without thinking.
Yeah.
We need to become conscious of this temple that we're operating. Being that soul in this avatar, we actually get to create the life of our dreams. And that's why I resonate so strongly with you, as a person and as a friend. I love what you bring to this sphere. So really, I've just popped your website up again for anyone that, there's so much value on that website. Is there any courses or anything like that that you've got happening at the moment that people would love to know about?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm doing in-person intensives here in Tulum, and I just did my first one last week. It manifested a lot quicker than I thought it was gonna because I wasn't
Tell me about
attached to the how, I wasn't attached to the when. I put it out there on Instagram, and one of my podcast listeners, she's like, "Oh, I'm in Tulum until Monday. I'd love to work with you." I was like,
Perfect.
okay, that happened real fast. So I had posted the offer, like, because I am here, I'll be doing like 3-day retreats, private intensives. But in this case, we did an in-person 1-day intensive, which was gorgeous and absolutely wonderful. So I have that offer, whether you come to Tulum or we do it virtually. And then the month of October, I was running a money manifesting special where people can do my money manifesting course and get private coaching with me, which has nothing to do with the topic of love that we've been talking about, but more so like there's the group coaching and then there's the private coaching. And so the group coaching is evergreen in that anybody can enroll at any time and get access to all the content, the modules, the subconscious reprogramming, and they can jump in on the live calls every month. And so I'm really excited about how I've shifted that program so that it's not just have to be 6 months open and closed container, but all of this is on the website. So if someone wants some more information, of course, hop on over to the website or come find me on Instagram and we can chat more.
Yeah, and you've got so many beautiful testimonies too. Do you have a favorite story? I know that a lot of our audience right now, especially because we're in Libra month, which is Venus energy, so we're channeling that Venusian
Mm-hmm.
goddess frequency. Is there any favorite stories that you've had with your clients on manifesting love? Like, I'm sure you have so many, but is there one that you'd love to share with us?
I have so many. Well, I already shared the one before, right? About the woman who realized her relationship was not in alignment and so left her husband and with 30 days,
Mm,
like met her now fiance.
amazing.
But there's another one which is really beautiful, a young woman called Malaysia. And we were working together in the Single to Soulmate group coaching program. And throughout the group coaching program, like she blocked her ex because they were still in contact, like meaningless
Mhm.
messages. She stopped smoking cigarettes. She shifted her relationship with her body. She changed careers. She met a great guy online. By the end of the year, like he flew to New York City to meet her. But the beautiful thing was, like when she read back to me her list, it was things like, he has to come to meet me. And he has to have a beautiful smile. And he shared with her when they got to New York, because they'd had FaceTimes, but she couldn't really like distinctly see his teeth. Turns out he had some teeth that were like kind of out of place. And when they met in person for the first time in New York City for New Year's Eve, he told her, he's like, I went to the dentist for meeting you in person to get my teeth fixed
Oh,
because I wanted to be perfect for you, right? And so then when she was reviewing her list, she's like, oh my God, like the universe is always listening. And so there was other aspects of that story that just worked out beautifully. Now they're married, they're living together in
oh.
Italy. They're like the cutest things ever. I love them so much.
Gotcha.
They're just so adorable. But I mean, it's like things like that, like you put it down on your list and you put it away and you kind of forget about it. Although
Mm,
I think it's also helpful to have your list and review it so that when you're out there and you're dating, you remember like, what is it that I'm
yeah.
looking for? And you're focusing on the right things, but also know that the universe knows, like the universe is paying attention and listening to your desires, and it's going to show up. And so just the whole teeth aspect of that story, and the whole time she created that affirmation, if I'm manifesting
Mm.
him, then he's manifesting me. And it's just so beautiful. It's so beautiful what can happen when you decide what you want and you allow yourself to receive it.
Yeah, I think so. That's such a gorgeous story, especially that they're
Mhm.
living in Italy and,
Yeah. And,
think
like,
I
he
just
came to the US, he's like, "You tell me where to meet you, and I'm there." And so
oh,
she chose New York City, and who he flew there to meet her, and, like, he must have a great smile, and he got his teeth fixed, and she didn't even know, so just, like, little things like that.
that's such a beautiful story. And it
Mhm.
reminds me of a conversation I was having with my sister a couple of years ago. And we were talking about, I guess, getting into alignment with things.
Mhm.
And she's very much like a homebody, always at home, gorgeous, gorgeous person. And I said to her, we need to think about the type of person that you want to manifest. And we were having conversation around what that person looks like, what their life would be like, what kind of woman would they be calling in to? Because I think sometimes we
Yeah.
also need to think about, and I've talked about this with some of my clients, and one of my friends too, that if you're manifesting this ideal woman or this vision of the wife that you want, what is it that she says to you that also
Yes.
resonates?
I'm
Can
so
you
glad you said that. No, no,
like
no,
just
because
remembering?
yeah, well, because we actually got into this on the intensive this weekend. So
Oh,
it
awesome.
was a love manifesting intensive. And so we were getting into what she wanted in partnership. And so I actually had her do two things. One, get clear on what she wanted on her list. And then two, well, 3 steps here. 2, she went through her list. I was like, "Okay, what of these qualities are you embodying versus not
Mm,
embodying?" Right? Because we need to become the person we want to attract in, the entire premise of law of attraction.
definitely.
And, there was only 1 or 2 things on her list that she wasn't embodying, and I'm like, "Perfect, you are so close." But then this also is a good mental trick for the mind to be like, "Wait a second, I'm not asking for too much," because a lot of people think, "How could this person actually exist? I'm asking for too much." And so when you realize that you're already pretty much this person, it's like, "Oh, like, yes, I'm a beautiful, unique snowflake, but you're also not a
Mhm,
unique, beautiful snowflake." It's like, "Come on, you're not asking for too much. You're already that person." So
mhm,
that was the second thing. But then the third thing I had her do, I'm like, okay, let's say you have met your dream guy. He's everything on this list, and he shows up your house tomorrow. Are you his dream girl? And
mhm.
so then that got her thinking, like, even just practical things like, my house is a mess. Like, I wouldn't feel comfortable inviting him in. And so right now, today, she FaceTimed me. She's cleaning her house. She got a house cleaner
Oh,
that's going to come in
yes.
and help her consistently. So it's like thinking along those lines. And so many women are like, I want this big old list in a guy, but
Mm,
they're not any of those things. Like, if you met that guy, would he actually think that you're his ideal woman? Or would he
yeah.
be like, damn, she's got a lot of work to do? And that,
Mhm,
once again, that's not meant to be like shaming anybody, but if you want a generous man, are you being generous? If you want a
mhm.
kind person, are you being kind? And it's not necessarily tit for tat. Like, if you want someone that's financially well off, you need to also have millions of dollars in the bank, but it's more the energy of embodiment.
Yeah.
Meaning, I think a lot of women, if I'm really honest with you, and I speak to women, but of course men as well, is if they really were confronted with the person they wanted to be with, I think they'd be terrified. I don't think they would be energetically actually ready and available for that type of high level
Yeah.
relationship. So we need to prepare ourselves. And that's the work I do with my clients. Like, you deserve to have this high level relationship. And let's clean up the ways that you're not there. And mostly it has to do with internal belief systems or
Mhm.
external faith in the universe.
Definitely. And I think that, it's also really important to look into self-worth when it comes to that, because I think that's another, let's just call it a speed bump or a little bit of a roadblock, because it's
Mhm.
not something that we can't iron out. But I see that come up too, where, people will manifest that perfect partner or that person that they, dreamed would exist. But then when they're actually, meeting them or they show up, they start to freak out, get scared, or have self-worth issues of,
Mhm.
oh my gosh, this is too good to be true. And it's funny because I was sharing with someone recently, there's from Game of Thrones, there's a quote
Okay.
that you can find, a meme, and there's this cute quote, and it's like, I'll kill the man who wakes me up from this dream. And so it's kind of a little joke I have with someone when it's like, no, it's too good to be true. It's not real. And I just say to them, I'll kill the man who wakes me up.
But
It's
yeah.
kind of like it's a subconscious disruptor when we're going
Mhm.
down that fear spiral or into self-worth stuff. We've got to have those little things that wake us up to go, no, this is actually real. This is actually happening with me. But we need to peel back those layers to get to the root of why do we think that we don't deserve it, or what is it that we could be blocking subconsciously, because we can pull things in, but say we manifest that person or manifest the desire that we're after, and then all of a sudden we start to push it away because we're not 100% comfortable with it yet. So we need to
Mhm.
keep working with that rapport that we have. Is there anything you find that helps to break that barrier down or those walls?
I mean, the thing is, it's not like a simple
Mm,
fix, right? Like
no
it,
one
it
size fits all.
yeah, exactly. And but like this is a big part like of conversations I've had with so many clients, because more often than not, the reason they're not in partnership is because there is this subconscious belief that I'm not good enough. So if they meet a
Mm,
great guy, they push him away. Or if they
yeah,
meet a less than stellar guy, they're like, see, told you so. Like
yeah.
there's not good quality out there. And so, like, digging in and reprogramming the subconscious mind or believing that you're worthy, it takes time, which means there can be tools. Like, I remember the first time I looked in the mirror and looked myself in the eyes and said, I love you, I love you, I love you. And like, even
Mm.
now I get emotional. Like, I started
Oh,
crying because I was looking externally for this love that it's going to be a reflection of the internal. And so we're always looking outside for fulfillment, but we need to find it inside first. And so there's those like simple tools like that, or even just reminding yourself. I mean, to be honest with you, Solreta, I think having someone, and like I'll toot my own horn, but I'm not the only love coach out there, or the most positive being in the world out there. But when you have someone every single week that you're on the phone with that ultimately is saying, come on, girl, like you're amazing, get your crap
yeah.
together, like in a loving way, like, do you not see how beautiful you are and amazing you are and how worthy you are and how you're such a catch? Like that, I think is really important. But that also means people can do those exercises, like writing down on a sheet of paper all the reasons why you are worthy, all the reasons why you are deserving of love can be quite powerful. And reading that to yourself every day and adding to it, things like affirmations, when you think and say something long enough, it eventually infiltrates into your belief systems. And I've had clients in the past say, Emerald, my affirmations just pop into my head randomly now. Like, I'm like,
Yeah.
yes, exactly. You don't even have to try. They just become part of who you are. And so depending on the person, like if someone has some serious trauma from childhood, they might have to do some deeper work than someone who was maybe chubbier as a kid and was told like you're fat. And that was actually part of my story too. My brothers picked on me because as a kid I had some extra weight, like whatever, we
I
all,
did too. Yeah.
yeah, we all do, right? And so, that's completely different than, let's say, sexual trauma or emotional trauma. It
Yeah.
might just be having to dig in and realize, like, wait a second, I'm beautiful at every age, every shape. And furthermore, if someone just wants to be with me because of physical beauty, like, mm-mm, That, like,
Yeah,
no, like that's like, I
exactly.
want so much more than that.
Definitely, we want that deep, gooey, beautiful, kind of like soul-braiding love.
Yeah.
That's why we're here on Earth. It's to experience this kind of love, and I think that, if we really want and desire that depth, we need to do the work. It's very unusual that it just shows up. I mean, my
Right.
parents are a gorgeous example of the universe just bringing people
But
together.
but how many lifetimes have they been doing the work?
Exactly.
What did their soul choose in this lifetime? And I would imagine one of their soul's lesson in this lifetime does not have to do with working through my shit to find love. Like they have
Mm,
other soul lessons. And that's one thing I think we all need to remember is your challenges and lessons are not the same as someone else's. So quit
so true.
comparing yourself to other people's relationships and lives because your path is individually crafted for you. And so, like, when my
Mm,
clients will be like, well, how come love's hard for me and easy for her? I'm like, because
yeah,
it's one of your lessons. How come it's easy for her to maintain a size 4 and for her it's hard? If she looks at a piece of cake, she gains more weight, right? It's like we need to stop judging and getting in that victim mentality of why me? Why is this hard for me? And instead just embrace it. Okay, these are my lessons. This is my soul's lessons of what I'm learning in this life, and that's okay. How can I enjoy the process rather than resist the process? And then if we
mm,
go a step further with manifestation, can you please remember that you're actually holding the controller in your hand? You're the one playing the game. And that's what I'm most passionate about sharing with people and reminding them you're the director directing the movie and you're sitting in the chairs watching the movie and you are the main actor on stage performing the movie. Like, remember your power. Like, you have a role, you have your lessons,
mm.
and at the same time you get to manifest. And if you want to, like, I'm tired of being the 7 of hearts, I want to be the queen of hearts. Well, you can have that,
Yeah,
you can do that.
it's
So
so
that's what
true,
this is
and
about, right? Like, we can shift our story of I'm so tired of this pattern in these relationships. Great. So
mm,
then let's step the F up and you embody your power and let's do this. But you have to make that
exactly.
decision.
And I think there's also that saying that, I think it's Tony Robbins, "Everything that we desire is on the other side of becoming uncomfortable." It's either
Totally.
Tim Ferriss or Tony Robbins that says that, but in order to experience or to create change, sometimes we need to get a little bit uncomfortable, and we need to do
Not
that deep
sometimes, pretty much all the time,
all the
girl.
time.
And that's different from not being safe, like we were talking about before with
Mm,
fear. You might be
yeah,
scared of something, but you're probably safe, right? Do you have food? Do you have shelter? Do you have clean
yeah,
running water? Yes, then you're
and
safe.
that's such a good perspective. When you were talking about past lives and things too, there is that ability or that it's good to kind of step back and view it from that past life situation or as a soul, outside of this earthly realm, kind of looking in on, okay, well, so far your soul's had these experiences, but what is it that you desire to create? Because we can always change the script. We don't have to have more of what we've had in the past. And I
Hmm.
think I think you're spot on. Some of us are here to experience more contrast to do with love, or to really be able to work on things. Like, I know for myself, I haven't had sort of that straight path forward to do with love. I had kids very early, a few different partners and lessons, and if I
Yeah,
view it and look at it as lessons, or look at it as it really taught me how to set my boundaries, because I did have, and still do have, such patience. And I've really had to learn how to step it up in terms of my boundaries, in terms of
hmm,
voicing things up. But if I just had, love manifest right from the start, I
right.
wouldn't have actually got to learn that about myself or be shown where I could have some strength building. I don't want to use like the
Exactly.
weakness word, but you know, love
Grown, right?
and relationships teach us both the positives and the negatives, and it's good to look at it as a balanced scale
Well,
in
and
what was it was yeah.
that's the thing. Like, that's the perspective shift that needs to happen,
Mm,
not the old paradigm of like find your love and get married and have kids and ride off into the sunset and live happily ever after. That happens for some people, but why is that the only paradigm? Why is that the only thing we're striving for? Instead of, if every single lesson or if every single relationship is a lesson, an opportunity for growth, and we're consistently growing over time and we're always going to desire more, that changes the paradigm for relationships. And so I think the reason so many people get hard on themselves is because there's only one paradigm we have been sold, which is you find your love in your 20s, you get married and you grow older together, as opposed to relationships are stepping stones. Relationships are ways that you get to learn yourself. And guess what? You might want something completely different in your 20s versus your 30s versus your 40s versus your 50s. And it's not a
Mhm.
failure if you've had multiple relationships that you've learned and grown and stepped up in. So we've got to shift the paradigm. And I think that's why so many people get stuck. Like you're saying, you didn't take the traditional path. Why is the traditional path the right path and the only path? So if every relationship was just an opportunity for growth, then there is no such thing as failure. And I think then we can move beyond the time of, but I should have been married by now. I should have the money by now. I should have the kids by now. Says freaking who? Oh, yeah, the societal paradigm and doctrine that says these are your measures of success. Well, I'm here to say,
Yeah.
screw that. Your measures of success are what feels right for you. So quit comparing yourself to others. When you view everything as an opportunity for growth, when you're in
Mhm.
alignment with your heart and your desires and you're living life for you, you're going to be pretty darn happy, I feel. And that's kind of my point in life. And so, whether I'm single or in partnership, the goal is to be happy. Whether I'm in Mexico or the US, the goal is to be happy. Whether I have millions in my bank account or $27 in my bank account, the goal is to be happy. Because why do we want anything in life? Because of how we think we're going to feel when we get it. So, let's just go straight to the point of how can I be happy and not put my happiness outside of me in a partnership, which means I'm not happy unless I'm in partnership. Well, that's codependency. And that means if that partnership leaves, then you won't be happy. But if you find your happiness first, then your partnerships you attract in will be a reflection of that. And if the partnership goes away, it doesn't matter because you're still happy, which means you're going to attract in again more happiness.
Yeah. I really hope that there'll be people out there, if this is resonating, that you perhaps like replay this and really let it soak in on a subconscious level, because there's so many just, pearls of wisdom or nuggets of gold that are just flowing through you and coming out of you. And I know that when you work, there's this channeling aspect to you, and that's why, for people that are doing the one-on-ones, you're able to specifically tailor it to the person too. So, is there anything that you feel that you want to like add, or anything that's been coming up in your conscious field lately, or things that you're seeing with clients that are coming up, perhaps as, how we'll attract clients and there'll be a pattern in those sort of clients. Is there anything that's coming into your universal sphere right now?
Right now with the clients, I would say the biggest thing that all of them are working on is truly the embodiment piece. Like,
Mm.
how would I act, feel, believe, think, do if I was in this partnership? How would I act, think, feel, do if I was the seven-figure actress instead of the broke actress? Right?
Yeah.
How would I think, feel, act when I'm in this next level of career instead of this current position? And so, right now, like the biggest thing that's been coming up for all of my clients is really stepping into that next level version. And actually, this is what I'm working on too, is the just deciding in my mind that it's happening. And I can tell you, especially here, because Tulum is such an energetic vortex, the
Mm.
manifestations are speeding up. And so the reminder that I have been working on is the I'm just deciding it's done, but I'm also not deciding when it's going to happen. And so I set my goals. And when I set my goals, then it excites me and it gets me in that energy. But I'm releasing attachment to, if it doesn't happen in October, that's fine. If it doesn't happen in November, it's fine. But this is the path I'm walking down. And so if you know you're eventually going to get there, then let go of the pressure of time. And as a result, that actually speeds up your manifestation. And so, one thing I would encourage and remind everyone is, yeah, set the path, like where it is you're going, set the GPS. You know you're going to that final destination of whatever your goal is, but don't get worried about how it happens or when it happens. And also know that when you get it, you're going to want more. And so when you think about the process of manifestation, you are more in the manifesting than you are in the process of enjoying the manifestation, right?
Mm.
Like it manifested, yay, like that was a moment in time. And I'll use the analogy of you're training for a marathon. Most of the process is you training for the marathon. The actual process of running the marathon and crossing the finish line is quite small, and then it's done. Now what? Well, then you're on
Mm.
to the next one. So if you think about life of jumping from one manifestation to the next, most of the time you're in the void. You're in that creation, that
Yeah.
creating part instead of the manifestation, right? So when you can enjoy the gap, knowing that the gap is pretty much always going to be the place that you live in, it makes it happen faster. And so that's why I always come back to, where's the joy? Where's the satisfaction? How can you enjoy the gap, knowing that the most of your life, you actually are going to be in that gap? So it's kind of a two-part thing of put yourself where you want to be, because now the present moment is the only moment we have. There isn't actually a future moment. It's right now. So right now, can you see it? Can you smell it? Can you taste it? Can you touch it? Can you believe it? Can you connect in with your future version of yourself? And in the meantime, what can you do to just get happy with what you have and where you're at? And if things are not in alignment and you're not happy with certain people or jobs or situations, then change it. Like, no one told you, like, if you don't like something, change it. I think I saw a quote that's like, you're not a tree, you can move, right? Like, change it. Or like Rick just commented it, the journey, not just the goal. Exactly. Because once you reach the goal, then it's like you celebrate it for a moment, but then it's done. Like, then you set the bar higher and you go for another goal. So I think this is just a really important reminder. And it's also what I've been working on as well, because it can be easy to notice the lack, as opposed to like, wow, like, look at this beautiful place I've manifested in Tulum, Mexico. And like, just yay, satisfaction of what is, and appreciation and gratitude.
Yeah, definitely. And enjoying those moments, like you were saying, laying around the pool before the show today, like really like in that moment, drinking it in, and like, this is what I'd been calling in, because that's going to attract more. But also really important, those, the vibration of happiness, joy, excitement, it creates more of a magnetic frequency. And so when we step more into that place of the heart, we're going to create a bigger vortex that's going to bring more of these things to us, rather than like looking at the, at the time going, why hasn't this showed up? Like, we don't want to block ourselves from creating and drawing these experiences to us. So I think if we can become conscious of, what is it that we're energetically putting out, we'll start to notice that paradigm shift and change, and we'll start to notice that even people will change. And I think another thing that's important too, when manifesting, is to also look into, I guess, with expectations or with patterns and things that we're changing. Sometimes we might want to create or shift or change something within ourselves, but we might be scared of what will others think. And I think that's another important piece of that pie or the puzzle is, do other people's opinions or perceptions of us really matter? Maybe for 5 minutes they do. So say like you've gotten out of a relationship and you're afraid of judgment, or like, what will people think? Or it's like, you make your first YouTube video, and what's so-and-so going to say from back in,
in high school
or high school or whatever. Does that matter? Is it just a blip on the radar? Is there anything that that you've learned, or that that helps you to sort of break past that perception of other people, and to not make it a big deal?
Sure. I mean, I've had this conversation with clients before, and I'll be honest, like, I'm still working on it. I think to some level, we all have a fear of not fitting in or getting kicked out of the tribe, but different mindset shifts that have worked for me or worked for my clients. I mean, or if someone, like you're talking about, like doing a YouTube video. So let's say someone is a coach or works online. I mean, the first thing I would say to that is, well, what is your message? Are you really passionate more about your message, or are you going to be willing to stay in the fear? Meaning, I would show up here with like a towel on my head, because I care more about sharing the message than I care about what I look like, right? I mean, I would do this live stream if I was down in the pool, like baking hot, like it doesn't matter, right? So like, I care more about my message. And like, same thing on Instagram, there'd be times like I was scared of being seen, and my coach at the time was like, well, what are you afraid of? And when I actually thought about it, it was like certain family members, and she's like, so you're scared of what people will think that aren't even your target audience? And so it's like little things like that. And it's like, if people were truly my friends or family and they didn't support what I'm doing, then are they truly like my beloved friends and family? And so I think sometimes just talking it through is really helpful. Playing the what if game is really helpful. Like, what am I really afraid of? But then ultimately, what are you more passionate about? Like your dream or your fears?
That is such a good one. Even just to ask that question to yourself, And really, I think the what if one, it's a really good tip. It's a really good tool. We're
Yep.
sort of coming into like the last 5 minutes. Is there anything that you would love to share with the audience, or anything that you're like really resonating with right now that's helping pull more manifestation to you? As you were saying, like being in that space of Tulum and things manifesting a lot faster. Is there
Yeah.
anything for those of us that are perhaps in
Not in
different
Tulum.
parts of the world? Even like Melbourne, where I am, in the harshest lockdown in the world, I'm still manifesting amazing things. Like just some of the stuff that's coming in lately, it's like it does not even matter where I am in the world. Is there anything that you can sort of share to help those that are not in Tulum at the moment?
Well, absolutely, because it really doesn't matter where you are in the world, because your energetic field, your thoughts, your belief systems are what affect your manifestations. And
Mhm.
so that's why I'm not surprised that you're still manifesting, because you've always been such a positive in a positive state about this all. Like I remember when I brought you on my podcast and we were talking about lockdown and how many days it had been, it wasn't phasing you. Like you weren't getting caught up in victim mentality. You weren't getting angry and upset and blaming whomever. It was just, okay, how am I going to go about my life doing whatever it is that I want
Yeah.
to do? And so I want to remind people, really doesn't matter what's going on in the world, but if you focus on that, then you're giving that your power. Versus you can truly, like, yes, we live in a collective consciousness. We're born into this paradigm that 7 billion people plus everybody before us have agreed to.
Mm.
And at the same time, you still have your personal sphere of influence. And so what I do is I always just picture myself in my sphere, right? Like I call on my angel team, I put on my angel wings, I go out into the world, I create magic and miracles based on that's what I see, that's what I appreciate, that's what I experience. And so as a traveler, I've always been a traveler. I'm not surprised that even during lockdown, I went to one, two, three, four different countries, including a 4-month road trip throughout the United States of America. Like it's just non-negotiable in my mind. Now, other people aren't travelers, and so maybe that doesn't matter to them. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I truly believe that it does not matter where you are in the world and what's going on around you. You still have the ability to create on a smaller scale your dream life based on what you want to feel, what you want to experience. And so get clear on those feelings and bring those feelings into your body as often as you can. But remember, you have to
Mm.
appreciate and be grateful for what is. And so you can quite honestly say, you know what? I don't like what's going on right there. So put it down. Don't look at it
Yeah.
anymore. Simple as that. Like, honestly, like when you told me about lockdown, I was like, oh, yeah, I forgot that was going on.
Yeah.
Someone just told me like Canada is like mandating whatever to get on an airplane. I was like, oh, really? Like, not in my world. Now, mind you, I'm
Yeah.
not in Canada, but it's still, it's like I live in a bubble and I say that proudly. I live in a
Yeah.
bubble and
I
I
do
freaking
too.
love it. Yeah.
It was funny. I was doing school pickup yesterday, and one of the mums and I were standing there talking. No mask on. Another mum sort of got her on her chin, and she's like, "Have we like? Do we not have to wear masks anymore?" And the other mum is sort of the same mindset as myself, and we looked at each other and we're like, "Oh, I don't know. We weren't kind of like listening and paying attention.
Mhm. Just in
Not
my
not in
own little
our
world,
world."
doing my own little thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's so important because, would we even know what is happening in the world outside if we, exactly like you said, put these things down? Um,
I wouldn't know what's going on in the world if we didn't have social media. Like I would know what's going on in my world. And
mm,
honestly, like I stopped watching the TV and news about 15 years ago because
yeah,
I want to be in control of what I put in my brain. I don't want other people to be in control, especially I know so much about the brain and how your thoughts create your reality.
exactly.
And so I just maintain a really pure vibration of love, light, appreciation to the best of my ability. Mind you, like, come on, I'm a human being still. And I find like life just gets like it continues to be beautiful, it continues to unfold. There's beautiful, magical people and experiences everywhere I go. And
Mm,
you also don't need to travel outside of your hometown to find that. So, just really inspired to remind people of their power, which is their focus, their energy, their attention. Like, that's what you call to you. And so, I
mm,
think a lot of people could probably take a news and media and social media break and just really get clear on what am I manifesting? What do I want to call in that has nothing to do with the collective consciousness? Because think about it, there's two ways to change a situation: you give it energy or you take energy away from it. And so right now, if you've got 7 billion people collectively focusing on a certain thing in the world, well, no wonder it's manifesting. But I got this download the other day of like, you can't change something by fighting it, like the war against drugs, the war against poverty, the
Mm.
war against COVID, the war against whatever. You don't stay here, you rise above it. And that's my practice every single day. And I'm like, okay, y'all minions can fight over whatever you want. I'm just gonna be up here living
Yeah.
my dream life, like not even noticing. And that's why it's like you just gotta raise your frequency, raise your vibration. You live in a completely different experience, a completely different bubble.
It's so true. It's like living in a different realm.
Exactly. 3D, 4D,
Yeah.
5D, call it what you want. But it's like, I'm gonna send up here a little bit
Yeah.
where it's just like pretty sweet.
And it's funny because you start to see that and, as you said before, have that as the sphere.
Mhm.
And it's funny because I'll notice like when I'll go into, Whole Foods or different things like that, and it's like you just take that sphere in with you.
Yep.
And you notice the way in which the universe brings different people into that sphere that are in alignment. But you also notice that there's other people that are perhaps not in resonance with that energy that you're bringing, and you start to create shifts and changes. So when you really hold that frequency of who you are, you'll notice that ripple effect out in
Mhm.
your universe. But I just want to say thank you so much for coming on my show today. It's just been such a delight to chat to you and to be able to share you with my beautiful audience. So thank
Thank
you so
you.
much, Emerald. And I've
You're
shared the link a couple of times throughout the show, but please, everyone, like there is just such value that Emerald brings in her podcast. Like you will literally go through episode after episode and just like binge. You will be fed for days
Oh,
on a
thank
soul
you.
level. Yeah, you're just amazing and such a gorgeous light. So thank you, Emerald.
Thank you. It was my pleasure. Absolutely. Thank you for having me. And of course, anyone's more than happy to reach out, and I am absolutely available.
Thank you. And thank you for everyone for joining us. Sending you all lots of love.
Bye.
Bye.